Hey everybody, this is Ernie with Peter Glenn. In studio today is Josh from Burton Snowboards, and we are going to run you through what we believe are the ultimate board, boot, and binding setups for riding AllMountain, Park, and POW. So, let's get to it. All right, Josh, let's get to the AllMountain Ultimate Setup.
Yeah, so you might as well just call this like your daily driver setup. When we're talking about AllMountain snowboarding, you're really just cruising and exploring the entire mountain, really kind of like every facet that the resort has to offer, whether that be riding groomers, the side country, getting in the trees, powder, and maybe even terrain park. So honestly, if you can't decide what you like to ride, you should probably just start putting together an AllMountain setup like we have here. And I guess let's start with the board. So when I'm talking about riding AllMountain, I typically want something that can handle some speed. I like cruising around the mountain really fast, and when we're talking about speed, you definitely want something that's a little bit stiffer than a standard board. So for our ultimate pick, we chose the Burton Hometown Hero. It's part of our Family Tree line, and if you guys aren't familiar with Family Tree, it's kind of a space in our line of boards where we get to experiment every year with really cool AllMountain kind of powder-oriented shapes. So the Hometown Hero has been in that line for a few years now. It's become one of our best sellers. And for a good reason. It is just great at everything. So let's walk you through like a couple of things that you should think about when you're looking for an AllMountain board. The first thing, I would probably get something that is directional, and that simply means that the nose is a little bit longer than the tail. Your stance is slightly set back in the board. So what that does is it allows that bigger nose to kind of float when you find yourself in deeper snow off the side of the trail. It also kind of helps you power through some of that choppy, chunky snow that you might get in the morning when it's super icy out. So directional is definitely key. And then if we tilt this up on its side, something that has a little bit of taper is nice. So Burton Hometown Hero has 12 millimeters of taper, meaning simply that the nose is slightly wider than the tail. Having that wider nose will help you initiate turns a little bit easier and is just another tool to help you float in deep snow. When talking about flex of an AllMountain board, this one kind of has some unique stuff going on. So the fiberglass in the board, the center is actually a little bit softer. There's not as much glass going on in here. So what that does is it gives you great foot steer. So because the center of the board is soft, it allows you to manipulate your heel and toe edge very quickly. But once you're up on edge, the stiff tip and tail track and hold very, very well at high speeds. So that's a really cool tool to have when you're cruising and going fast. The other thing, when we're going to talk about board bend, I personally prefer a directional camber snowboard. Camber simply meaning that there's an arc from contact point to contact point. That gives you a little pop and power out of the center of the deck. Those 2 points also grip the snow and hold edge extremely, extremely well. So yeah, all in all, Hometown Hero out of our Family Tree line is really kind of the ultimate daily driver, perfect AllMountain board. Yeah,
and it's won a lot of awards as well. Yeah. So to match up your bindings with this board, which is a medium to stiff board, we also want a binding that's comparable, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. And step-on, honestly, for AllMountain riding is a great choice. So we just told you a minute ago that for AllMountain, you probably wanted a stiffer board that could handle high speed. So to pair that, you kind of want a stiffer boot and binding that will complement that stiff board. So for this ultimate setup, we chose the Step-On X binding, which has a 50% carbon nylon base plate. So because it's carbon, it is very stiff, very light. A stiff binding simply transfers your power quicker to the board. So when you lean into a stiff high back, it's going to transition your weight directly to your heel edge very, very quick. What's cool about the Step-On system compared to a traditional strap binding too is that you're actually connected to the high back itself. And what that does is when I go to lean forward on my toe side edge, I'm actually pulling the entire high back and therefore the heel edge with me. So it is an immediate transition from toe to heel. So it gives you a lot of control and response when charging the mountain hard.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people really don't understand about the benefits of these the step-ons is you are literally locked into the binding.
Yep.
And now let's talk about boots to match up with these stiff bindings.
So I think, Ernie, like just generally as a rule of thumb, you don't want your binding to outpower your boot. And what I mean by that is if you have a stiff binding, you should definitely be looking for a stiffer boot to complement that binding. If you were to run something very soft with a stiff binding, you'll feel that stiff high back digging into your calves by the end of the day. So definitely complement stiff binding with a stiff boot. We have chosen the Ion step-on boot, which is our stiffest in the line. Just like with bindings, the stiffer the boot, the more response you're going to have from toe to heel edge. What's great about the Ion boot is that you kind of have 3 ways to customize your fit. So the Ion offers speed zone lacing, which is very cool. So in order to tighten the lower section of the tongue, you pull this left tab, lock in, and shove it in your pocket. Pull this side to tighten the top of the tongue, lock in, put it in your pocket. So you have complete control over the upper and lower section of the boot. And then finally you have the snugger strap here, which allows you to determine how much you want this thing to flex forward and backwards. So say you're at the top of the mountain getting ready to drop in, you want to crank this thing tight, get as much control and power out of your boot as possible, rip down to the bottom, and then once you're heading back to the truck at the end of the day or in the village, you can pop this loose and walk a little bit more freely. So great control over your boot, very comfortable. Always make sure this clip on the back here, you put your pants in there. That just keeps your pants out of the mechanism that locks you into the binding, so you don't get stuck on hill. But yep, overall, Burton Ion step-on boot would be a perfect all-mountain, component to the setup. Yep. So Ernie, I guess just to recap our all-mountain setup, let's go back through it again. So all-mountain riding, you just can't decide what you like. You want a board that can handle anything, whether that be POW, groomers, side country, even park a little bit too. So what you want, again, is something that's a little bit directional. You want a setback stance, a little bit longer nose and tail. Taper is your friend again, and then we kind of like that directional camber shape that's going to give you a lot of grip at high speeds. So again, Hometown Hero checks all those boxes. Perfect all-mountain board. And then going on to bindings, we really like step-on for an all-mountain setup. So we chose the step-on X binding because it is light. It is super stiff, very responsive for controlling your Hometown Hero at high speed. Step-on X binding, great choice. And then to complement that stiff binding, we kind of went with a stiffer boot too. Like I said, you don't want to have your binding overpower your boot. So a stiff boot to complement a little bit stiffer binding is what you want there. So step-on, Ion, great choice, customizable, very comfy. Yeah, we'll do it all.
Yeah, great setup, Josh, and thanks so much. Thank you also for watching. You can check out the rest of the 21-22 Burton lineup at peterglenn.com or in any one of our stores.